All right, I think that we are live. If you are in the Zoom room, if you could just do a quick little shout out, tell me that you're there. Um, welcome to our stories of hope and recovery from our beloved facilitators that run our group that have lived experience with an eating disorder. We are concluding our Eating Disorders Awareness Week, our annual Not One More weekend. Today is our National Day of Recovery, and I can't think of a better way than ending it with each and every one of you, with these humans on this screen that I am lucky enough to call my colleagues, my friends. And I have to admit that this is without a doubt one of my most favorite things that we get to do every single year. So thank you all for showing up today. And to our facilitators, thank you for giving so freely of your Sundays and being such a beacon of hope and inspiration and, my heroes on my journey. So welcome. This is held by the National Alliance for Eating Disorders, or the Alliance. We are the leading national nonprofit organization that does everything from free therapist-led support groups. I can officially say that a week from today, we are launching our Sunday group. So we now have groups 7 days a week virtually. We have some in person. It's gonna be a good time. So come join us every day, a few days, once a week, whenever you want. We are there. We also have, we hold the National Helpline that's staffed by licensed and specialized providers in the treatment of eating disorders. Our fabulous Nick Coppage is here, who works on the helpline, and they truly are incredible. Our helpline is open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to ask folks to actually, you beat me to it. If you could go ahead and start private messaging me. So Joanna, my name is Joanna, she, her pronouns. I'm the CEO of the Alliance. Thrilled to be here. But if you can go ahead and private message me your questions, they go into a different place, and that's where I will be putting reading questions. So please go ahead and start doing this. These are questions for facilitators. And then the last thing that I will just say is we are so thrilled to be an organization that does a myriad of outreach, education, early intervention, and does everything in our power to walk next to you all on your journey to recovery. So, how tonight will go, it's a little bit different. It's a 2-hour special Stories of Hope and Recovery. We are going to ask you, our fabulous community, to send me questions that you want the panelists to answer. We're going to get through or try to get through as many questions as possible. I was just sharing with our fabulous facilitators at last night's 10 o'clock p.m. group on Ask the Experts. We got over 200 questions from our community. So I am really excited to get a bunch of questions for tonight. I would love for you all to interact in the chat, of course. And then why don't we go ahead and start with introductions so you can see who is part of our community today. So actually, Nick, I'm going to toss it over to you. Come on in and share who you are.
Hi, this is my favorite day of the year. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Nick. My pronouns are they, she, and I am a clinical social worker based out of Florida, as well as a helpline therapist at the Alliance.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Nick. Next, we have Kate Peoples.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. I use pronouns she, her. I am a licensed clinical social worker in Austin, Texas. And yeah, I look forward to this event every year.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kate. Before I ask Nikki to come on in, apparently I'm a little rusty with this webinar mode. So if you all can sort of switch your questions to the Q&A at the bottom of your screen and go ahead and send me questions through the Q&A, that would be amazing. Okay, while you do that, Nikki, come on in.
Hi, I'm Nikki. I am a licensed therapist in Florida and Georgia, she, her pronouns, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to share our stories today.
Nikki, thank you so much for being here. McCall, would love to call you in.
Hey everyone, my name is McCall Dempsey. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder and director of Southern Smash, our college skill smashing program, and someone with lived experience who just really likes sharing my story so that others know that they're not alone. And I'm excited for tonight.
Awesome. Thanks so much, McCall. Next up is Galena.
Hi, everyone. My name is Galina Lipkin. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in Chicago and love doing this group every year.
Amazing. Next up, we have the fabulous Anna.
Hi everyone, I am Anna. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I use she, they pronouns, and I reside in Central Illinois. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Anna. Erin, come on in.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a queer and trans clinician in California with lived experience. I'm so happy to be here with y'all.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Erin. Shannon, come on in.
Hi everyone, I'm Shannon. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also a social worker based out of New York City. And this is my first time being able to share my story with y'all, so I'm really excited.
Shannon, we're thrilled to have you today. And Sandy, come on in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Niebel. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in multiple states, and I currently reside in Princeton.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Sandy. And Joy, come on in.
Good evening, good afternoon. My name's Joy Mativier. I'm a dietitian. I live in Asheville. I use she, her pronouns, and I represent the military community. I'm a military member, and so I know that's a part of some of our stories. So I'm happy to share and so glad to be a part of this.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joy. Jen, come on in.
Hello, everyone. I am Jen Barney, a she, her pronouns. I am a clinical psychologist residing in Columbus, Ohio, but I see clients all over. I'm a PsyPact clinician, so excited to be here and hear what everyone's got to share this evening.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jen. Laura, come on in.
Hey y'all, my name is Laura, she, her pronouns. I'm a therapist in the Orlando area and I adore this panel. So thank y'all for being here with us today this Sunday.
I'm so happy you're here. Genevieve, come on in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Genevieve. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a registered dietitian in New York City and very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Ellen, come on in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. Also live in Columbus, Ohio, and very happy to be here with you all again today.
Awesome. Rachel, come on in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel, she, her pronouns. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a queer and recovered clinician, and support groups are my thing. The Alliance is my thing. I love this. I love this panel. So excited for a great conversation.
Amazing. And leading us on chat tonight, Dr. H, come on in.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Joanne Hendelman, alias Dr. H. My pronouns are she, her, and I am clinical supervisor at the Alliance.
Amazing. All right. That's our panel. We're super psyched. Thank you all so much for bearing with me as I navigate technology. A few other housekeeping items. You can do all the things today. You can nourish, you can walk around, you can, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself since you all are not on camera. I know that's a little different. I do promise to try to get to as many questions as possible, so please bear with me and give me grace to be human. And then last but certainly not least, this is the ending of our Not One More weekend. It's our annual weekend where we raise funds so that we can host our support groups. So if you are able to support, please do. Dr. H will make sure to put that information in the chat. So, okay, we're going to get started. Oh my goodness. All right. The first one that I got right off the bat is navigating comparisons in the recovery spaces. How have you navigated comparison in the recovery spaces? So I'm just going to ask whoever wants to raise their hand and start. Anna, come on in.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. A big part of my recovery was finding how to exist in a larger body and not compare myself to other people in treatment. And I think for me, I was able to realize that my story mattered no matter what I was struggling with, and that my journey was going to look different. And that just because other people were getting different support or similar support, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was focused on my recovery. And so for me, it meant focusing a lot on finding people who look like me, who are also in recovery, whether that's through social media, whether that's through my own friend group, like putting myself in spaces where it wasn't just like the average human that I would see in spaces. And so that was really helpful for me. So that's how I have worked the comparison.
Amazing. Laura, come on in.
Yes, I know I'm going to say this a lot, and I say a lot in groups too, but I think about like values-based recovery and really figuring out as I navigated through this space what my values were as a true human versus maybe what values lean more towards eating disorder world, and how that like value of comparison maybe didn't align with who I was. Because I don't, me as a my true human would like to, not perfect, doesn't want to maybe think negatively about myself, think negatively about others, put value on looks, put value on things that we don't have any control over. Like there's, for me, it was a way of bringing the values of who I was as the person I wanted to be throughout recovery and kind of always trying to move towards that version of myself. But it was a lot of self-correction, trial and error, trying to challenge those thoughts. But I think if we're honest with ourselves about it, instead of looking at it with shame, it's a really helpful tactic to get there just a little bit sooner.
Thank you so much, Laura. And Joy, I know that you had your hand up, so why don't you come on in as well?
Yeah, I can remember early on, as just early on in my recovery and recognizing that the eating disorder was starting to take more of my brain than I wanted it to, that I devoted quite a bit of time to a ranking and a hierarchy when I entered a space. And it would be all sorts of spaces, spaces that were professional or academic or fun, or, I mean, except for family, because that was different. But any sort of space, I would quickly make a lineup and try to find out, do I feel safe because of where I fall in the lineup? And I remember early on recognizing that and being like, ugh, to myself. But it started small, just with that awareness. And I think for actually months or years, I didn't know what to do about it. And it took up a part of my brain space as just this thing I did until I found ways with therapists to talk about, hey, Joy, that's a thing for people with eating disorders. Let's work on that. But it really felt yucky to me for a long time because that was not in line with my values.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joy. And thank you all so much for that answer. Next question. How do you start to tell friends and family that you're struggling with an eating disorder? What was that experience for you? Ellen, come on in.
Yeah, I think for me, this was something that was just really challenging to navigate because have existed in a larger body as well, even throughout my whole like experience of an eating disorder. And so people a lot of times would be like, "What are you talking about?" Right? I didn't fit that stereotype. And so I had one to accept for myself that this is something I was struggling with and being able to say like, I deserve support no matter who I am, what I look like, what my experiences are. And then I think starting small with people that I could trust and not necessarily being like full out all the time of like, I have an eating disorder. It might be like, hey, I'm struggling with something. It feels really vulnerable to bring this up to you. And then kind of thinking about, what I was hoping out of that conversation. Was I hoping for them to just be supportive? Was I hoping for them to be responsive? Was I hoping for them to give me advice? Kind of like knowing going in what I was hoping for, but then also being like, I always like to talk about having a coping ahead plan. So like if I go and talk to this person and it goes really bad, how am I going to still take care of myself after? Because with anything, no matter how much we try to say things in the best way or anything like that, um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Just being able to be generous and kind to myself in that process is really important.
Aaron, come on in.
Yeah, very similar to Ellen, I've existed in a larger body my whole life. And so myself, I didn't know like, oh, eating disorders, they're a thing for me too. And especially as someone who's Latino too, not talked about all in my family or culture. So I found myself not only educating myself as I went through my own recovery, but having to educate others as well. And I think in that education and like trying to talk about it and teach others around me to how to support me, I grew more confident and was able to build a community around that. And I think most importantly though, it just wasn't easy, but it could be done. That was kind of my experience with it. So.
I love that. Thank you so much, Aaron. Next question. what would you say was the turning point or a turning point in your recovery journey that helped you want to get better or helped you want to try the journey of recovery? Was there a turning point? Was there something that came up? Awesome, the three of you. Nick, go ahead and then go right in, Kate, after.
Yeah, so first of all, I think it was a friend, someone I didn't even know. I didn't know them. I was visiting a friend at college, and I made a comment, something about food or exercise, and the person looks at me and was like, that doesn't sound healthy. And I was like, what? You don't know me. And they're like, no, like, I'm sorry, but that doesn't sound healthy. And I was like, it was this feeling of like if someone I don't even know is like bringing attention to something that my dad has been telling me, that a couple of my friends have been telling me, like maybe I should take it seriously, but I'm not going to label it. It's nothing bad. And then lo and behold, that started my recovery process. And then there was a second moment where I kind of stepped into what I would say was like maybe like a half recovery, like kind of recovered, not really. But I remember it was the night before seeing Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I was with some friends, and there was a shared meal happening, and I had brought my own food, and I just remember being like, this is so boring. Like, why am I not with my friends? Why am I not celebrating with them? Why am I doing something in a whole other room just And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Um, and it was New Year's Eve. I remember it. And from that point, I think it was really just this moment of there's too much time, energy, and thought still being spent around the eating disorder, and I don't have room for that anymore. I don't want it. And I didn't know what different was going to look like. I just knew it had to be different. So those are like the two moments that stand out.
I can resonate with the knowing things needed to be different. I think first I want to name that I was really privileged when I was an adolescent and young adult to have access to higher levels of care. And as a lot of people do experience, it became pretty cyclical in nature, this revolving door. And I think the place where it really turned for me was when I had dropped out of school a bunch of times. I wasn't really able to complete a semester. All my friends had graduated. And I just remember thinking, being in a place where it felt like, well, do I go back to kind of what I know, which was treatment, right? Like, what does this look like? I'm back in the same struggle, feeling really frustrated by this cyclical nature of the eating disorder. And then also realizing that like something had to change. Like life wasn't going to change unless I was more of an active participant. And actually, the bulk of recovery happens in my life, happens outpatient. And I think it had taken me some time to really recognize that as much as I wanted it to happen in the confines of somewhere safe and I could come out and it would be easy, right? That you get to do it in this little bubble and then everything is easier. That's not how it worked, right? It's not how life works. It's not how recovery works. That in order to build more kind of like proficiency in recovery, in order to learn how to show up in my life and take care of myself, it had to be really messy and I had to stumble through it. And so I very much remember deciding, I'm not going to try and launch myself back into school. I'm going to take a break. I went and worked for a while. I'm going to focus on my mental health. And then I was able to return extremely slowly, but it built up my self-confidence. But yeah, there was this moment of like, I have to be the one to change this. I've tried it this way. The same cycle isn't working. You have to try something else.
I really resonate with everything that you shared, Kate. And also, I think that to Nick's point, I feel like I had a few points where I just had like a turning moment. Like the first turning moment that really stands out to me is I was really tired of just being sick all the time, fighting the same battle over and over again. And I went into it begrudgingly. Like I didn't have the like inner desire really to recover, but like for school, for my career, for like the things that I wanted to get done, it felt like it was necessary. So I was like dragging my feet through it, but I was just doing it because it's like I need to do this. I really have things that I want to do. I have a career that I want to build. I have like friends and family that I want to spend time with, and this is really getting in the way, which was really valuable at the time, right? To just do it because I wanted to live my life, but I still felt, kind of attached to it. And I started to notice how that begrudging recovery was really starting to show up in how I was talking to myself and how it, like a dark cloud, it like colored everything dark. I hated it. I hated doing this. And every day it was such a challenge. And every day it's such a battle. And it just became like a light bulb moment. Like, I don't want to be mean to myself. I don't want this to hurt. I don't want this to be so hard. I have to do something differently. And I think that was really the part that like went from recovering as like an action to like recovery that was just deeper than that. It became like a relationship that I had with myself. I was really focused on how do I sound in my head when I'm talking to myself? How do I sound when I'm putting on clothes? How do I sound when I'm, making a meal? How am I talking to myself? And then I started to realize, oh, I can be like a friend to myself. That could be cool. And then that started to really kind of grow. And I really started to like have fun with getting to know what I like, getting to know what clothes I like, getting to know, what foods I like, getting to know the people that I actually liked and wanted to hang out with, and not just people who kind of reinforce my same kind of dark, pessimistic viewpoint. Like I was tired of bonding with people over how much I hated everything. And I really think that that just shifted something inside of me that I didn't recognize was, gonna be so powerful. But just even now, like when I'm talking to myself inside of my head, sometimes I hear it and I'm just like, that's my little best friend that I cultivated. And I feel like that moment just really like changed everything because it wasn't just about recovery. Recovery was super important, but it was really about just taking a step into being in like relationship with myself. And I think that was like my biggest turning point.
Wow. Nikki, thank you so much for that incredible answer for all of your responses. Okay, next question. For those of you who may have felt helpless at any point, hopeless, excuse me, at any point on your journey to recovery, how did you regain hope? How did you continue to move forward? I'm pretty sure everyone can answer this question, but for those of you who haven't responded yet, would love to hear from you. How did you regain hope and move forward when you felt hopeless? Go ahead, Genevieve, and then Shannon.
Yeah, I think this is such a very valid feeling in recovering in that process. I think for me, I found it the most helpful to truly take it one moment at a time and not having to decide like, okay, I'm committed to this for the rest of my life. I'm like, okay, I'm committed to this for the next minute, for the next day, and taking it one day at a time. Because if you look at it too broadly, it just becomes really overwhelming. And I think in those moments too, leaning into things that do bring you joy, whether it's like watching like a really dumb TV show that you love, or hanging out with a friend or family member, or I'm really into theater, like going to a show to just kind of re-ground me in the things that bring me joy, of like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it, for these moments of joy where my brain isn't constantly taken up by the eating disorder thoughts. I think that definitely helped restored some of the hope. Also doing it while I was still hopeless. Of like, I don't have to hold hope right now in order to still keep going.
Yeah, I really resonate with what Genevieve's saying too. And like the one quote, like do it scared was something that I would like tell myself over and over again. In the sense of like I think when I was feeling so hopeless, I had gone through like that cyclical pattern that we were talking about earlier, and really trying recovery, but like more of just like half in, half out. And I think it got me to a point where I was like, I've never just tried to like 100% lean in. And even that idea, recognizing that I haven't done that 100%, gave me hope in the sense of like, there is another option that I'm so scared to do. And so continue to repeat myself like do it scared, do it scared, do it scared, and just go all in and see what happens, with what Genevieve was saying, like taking it one day at a time, right? Because if I was like, if I'm gonna lean 100% in and I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, the idea of that was terrifying. So like doing it, okay, I'm gonna do what I can do today, and just like Genevieve said, like finding those little things that I enjoy that do bring me a little pocket of happiness. And that's kind of where my mindfulness was huge in my recovery, was super, super important. And so for me, it was like outdoors, like sitting outside, for a little bit in like I was became a huge bird watcher. And I'm still to this day, that's something that I love to do. But I was just like one with nature in those little tiny moments where like everything was just quiet and I was just letting my mind and my brain and myself just be at peace. That gave me hope because I was like, I can get peace. Like there are little pockets of peace in my life, and that is what I want with recovery.
That was beautiful. Thank you so, so much for that response. Are there still hard days with your eating disorder? If so, what do you do? Galena, come on in.
Um, Absolutely. And I think one, it's knowing that, my brain has gone there before and my brain will go there again, but also just the society and the culture that we're steeped in, those messages are going to come around. Those messages are going to kind of knock on the doors of the eating disorder of like, hey, remember me, remember this thought, remember this belief. So knowing that those things are going to pop up and kind of be reawakened. Um, in terms of dealing with it, I think one, it's the reminder of how empowering it's been to get into a place of recovery and knowing how much better I feel, how much more aligned my life is with what I want it to look like. And one of my favorite things is knowing the rules are made up. Like the rules about bodies and what they're supposed to look like and what they're supposed to feel like or wear, like all of these things. The rules are completely made up. And if overnight our society decided to change the rules, we would be following those rules instead. And so it just happens to be that like we have this set of rules. I don't have to listen to them. I can make up my own rules and live my life the way I want to without having to listen to other people.
Yeah, I had to come in again. Sorry, everyone, because this has been a topic so, so present on my mind. It was literally just a couple nights ago. I was having a conversation and with one of my partners and was just like, this is so hard. Like, I'm so glad I did it, but this is so hard. I hate this sometimes. And that's because, sure, I'm in recovery. Sure, I'm a therapist who works with eating disorders. But before all of that, I'm a human. I'm a human who lives in a society that values thinness, whiteness, sexism, ableism, like is systemically just unbalanced all the time and unjust all the time. And have grown up in this, right? And we're human first, and we're going to hear messages, we're going to hear comments, we're going to experience different treatment that's not just going to go away because you've been in recovery. And I think what makes it different is reconnecting to my reasons why, right? Why I continue doing this. And like Galena said, even just like remembering like all these things are all made up by people in power who are not myself. And what are my values? What do I care about? I also just think being really open and honest with not just myself, but like with my therapist, with my care providers. Because hiding, even just if it is just a passing thought, right? Hiding that isn't gonna help. Being in community, connecting with my people. Um, and yeah, just looking at the life that I've created for myself, I could have never had when I was in my eating disorder. And so I think just regrounding in what I know to be true, even if it doesn't feel true all the time.
Ditto to everything that Galena and Nick just said. I will just add like the self-compassion piece of like whenever I experience these like eating disorder thoughts or the urges or something that still comes in, I remember like I'm human and it's okay to have these thoughts, right? That doesn't mean I have to go with them. A thought is just a thought. An urge is just an urge. And I can be human and have those things and not act with that. Also, I still have my treatment team also. Like I have my general mental health therapist. I have an eating disorder therapist also still, and still see a dietitian. Not as frequently as I did when I was really struggling, but I still have them because for me, I know that's an important piece is like I'm gonna continue to have triggers that I experience in life just because I'm human and there's highs and lows, right? But I know that I still need and deserve that support, even if I'm doing pretty good most of the time, right? There's days that I struggle and it might not be related necessarily to the eating disorder, but I know that it's also so intertwined. And so one of the things that I think about for myself when I identify like I'm in recovery is like this is a lifelong journey for me. There's going to be highs and lows that happen. And I believe recovery is possible, yes. And I also believe I'm a human who's going to go through some BS. And so I'm going to have to learn how to navigate that. And so just that self compassion and still reaching out to be in support. I have support groups that I still attend to that like are just people I've known for a long time, also in recovery. Yeah, it's really important for me to have that self-compassion and continued support.
Joy, come on in, and then we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, I would like to say that in my life, the same fear energy that drove the eating disorder is not present with me for food and exercise anymore, but it is ever so present with overproductivity and rest. I am at war with my agenda book, my Google Calendar, um, my children asking me to sit and not be productive. I am at war with that. And it feels so insidious because I have all these external systems saying, good girl, you're doing so much. Look at you go. Super mom, super professional. It's very similar to, oh, look, you're on a diet. Oh, look at you waking up at 6 and exercising. And I'm like, no, I want to be recovered. And so I still often feel like I'm in recovery from I'm trying to get free from Ed, but he morphs and switches. And it, I'm always looking for supportive spaces and humans that'll be like, hey, Joy, just chill out. Like, do nothing. Like, just relax, just be. We don't care if you perform today. And I'm like, oh. So it shifted. Um, and it's sneaky and slippery, but it's not, it's similar drum beats.
Joy, I think everyone nodded their head on this call about productivity, and I saw all the comments in the chat as well. So we feel very seen. So we just want to let you know that. My next question, it's going to be two-part question. So I'm going to ask the first one, and then I'm going to ask the second one. And I don't want to say it's like two different sides, but they are very much, I would say, can be experienced differently. So the first question is, how can your family, or how does family support, like, how can your family be helpful? How was your family helpful? And by family, they specified it can be blood or not blood. So I just want to put in there. So what can families do to be supportive? The other side of the equation is what happens when you don't have that family, when you don't have the community. Like your team might be there only if you have healthcare access, but then if it's like once a week or so, both sides of the equation. So we're going to start with how were your families supportive on your journey? Sandy, come on in.
Hi, everyone. Um, so I don't really include family. I mean, this may be unpopular right now with everyone else's shares. When I first came into recovery, I had very young children. I couldn't include them. And then it just kind of evolved into not. And then I would try a couple things with my parents at the time, and they were just not really getting it. So they're not my recovery family. People in recovery are my recovery family. And so yeah, not family. It just wasn't needed. I know we say that you can't recover in a vacuum. Well, I didn't have a vacuum. I had like, family was just like whatever. They just saw me getting nicer, being a better parent, being a better human and being more philanthropic. But my go-to still to this day is people that I maybe started out in recovery with eons ago or newer people. And so that became my recovery family.
Anna, come on in.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing of I have a chosen family member who is like my number one support in my recovery, and I have a really incredible spouse. But I also don't have the support from my family that I would like to have. And I think I've had to accept that. And while it really sucks, I think it's also made my recovery a lot better because I'm not constantly seeking approval from people who cannot validate me or be there for me. My family has their own stuff that gets in the way of them supporting me, and I think I used to fault them And I don't anymore. Like we have a relationship. I still talk to my family. I still see them for holidays, but when it comes to my eating disorder, it was between choosing recovery and choosing a life entangled with diet culture in my family, and I chose a life of eating disorder recovery, which sucks. But I am so thankful as a queer person that I have so much chosen family and that I've been really blessed to have moms and father figures who have really come into my recovery. So I don't think recovery necessarily has to be like biological family. There's also chosen family. So for me, it just meant, yeah, realizing where my parents are at. And it sucks, but that's where they are.
I actually was really, really fortunate to have family support and involvement through a lot of my recovery, through all of my recovery and currently. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have been able to get the support, the treatment that I received. And they did a pretty good job, all things considered, not knowing what the heck any of this was, even though it also ran in our family, that genetic component was quite strong. They did a pretty good job navigating it and letting me steer the ship. I think something I'm really appreciative of is they have been able to figure out this willingness to kind of let go of some of the things that I'm like, I'm figuring this out for me. I'm going to try doing this for me, or I'm setting this boundary for me. And a lot of times they still don't understand it. They still don't get it. They still say the wrong things. And they're still meeting me with, we trust you. We're figuring this out with you, or you got to do what you got to do. So I think if it weren't for my family, I feel very, very fortunate that they were able to show up for me, even though it still was this like bizarre concept of what the heck is this whole recovery thing. And it shows up today too. So very appreciative.
Laura, come on in.
Yes. Hi. I like this question because it's something that I have always sat between both of the questions asked. And I felt a lot of shame in my story because I was very privileged to have and do have a very supportive family. I made an active choice to not tell them. And now, on the flip side of things, they're very supportive and they say the wrong thing sometimes, but I'm at a point where it's like, okay, like the stuff they say truly is just those little comments that I'm capable of handling and kind of moving forward with. But I think that I wish I had, knowing I had access to that, but looking back, I understand why. Funnily enough, I didn't tell them until I got a job working with the Alliance when I started doing support groups. And they were like, that's a very interesting thing for you to do. And I was like, well, I just wanted to tell you. But the reason I also like it is that I did have that community that I leaned into in lieu of the fear of telling my family, as I did seek that out, be that through my journey in sobriety or just general friendships, that they were able to be there for me. So when the time came to talk to my family, things did feel a lot easier. But kind of like Rachel just said, the biggest theme overall is I needed to be able to trust people I was telling, and I need to be able to trust myself to get through it. If that included leaning on other people, if that included higher level of care, if that includes family, whatever your story is, it really came down to me of what does it mean when I tell people and let them in, chosen family or blood family, and are they going to trust me and help guide me through this process hand in hand, or was I afraid that I was going to be punished or penalized, which was a wrong thought. My family's amazing, but not everybody has access to that, and sometimes that is the truthful fear. And so I just went on make space for all the sides of it. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. I think we have to, it's so nuanced, and I think we have to hold all of it. And I think what's so beautiful is, I'm going to use the word family, and we can insert our definitions of family is they can be like the superpower on the journey of recovery, whether that is someone from support group, whether it is a parent, whether it is a sibling, whether it's a grandparent. Like one of the things that I love, and Nick, I know you actually started answering this in the chat. Would love to actually bring you in for the other part. Is one of the things that Nick and Tori and Allie say to us all the time on the helpline is we have so many grandparents that will call, and it is such a beautiful experience of like, and so, or it might be a teacher, it might be a neighbor, it might be someone you meet in support group. but I just really want to just hold space for this idea of not having to navigate this alone, which brings me to the other part of the question. So Nick, why don't you come on in?
Yeah, so I put this in the chat, but I know not everyone can see it, and I think it's easier to kind of expand upon verbally. In the beginning of my recovery, I did not open up to my parents for a multitude of reasons, family, trauma, all that stuff. They didn't really know. They just knew I was going and seeing a therapist. My friends didn't really understand. I had a lot of friends still actively pursuing weight loss and all these other things. And so for me, like my recovery family was a lot of online spaces. And that also wasn't even just support groups. Sometimes that was people that I found on Instagram or like Facebook community pages, even like just online. And now with that, and I put this in the chat, it kind of lost my original message. I do always say, please proceed with caution. Not every pro recovery influencer or community is necessarily always the most helpful. Sometimes it can be really harmful. So that was another thing for me. I had to make that call of, okay, now I made all these really great people online who are very supportive and kind and understand, and now it's starting to pull me in a different direction. So, all right, let me try and pivot and, find other things. I also think this, can expand to like I went through my earliest parts of recovery while I was still in undergrad. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily finding like ED spaces to click into or like pro recovery spaces. I was also like joining the National Organization for Women on my college campus or the queer group on my college campus and starting to explore those other facets of my identity that I got to really dive into even more once I started taking care of myself. So I also think, for those who might not have that community of like, recovery spaces, like also don't discount like go find like, clubs or groups or, whatever that looks like in your area. Maybe it's a faith space even. Because no, it might not necessarily be focused on here's an eating disorder and here's recovery and we're going to stop behaviors, but you might find that as you plug into those identity passion areas, that is part of recovery. And so I wouldn't discredit that either. So yeah.
Nick, thank you for that. And one of the things that I think I have so much gratitude for is community that has been created even in support groups like our support groups that we hold, other support groups. When, yesterday as I was sitting back and I was listening, how many people shared like their gratitude for the other humans in the group that were such a support for them during their journeys, during their hardest times. And so I love, Nick, that you talked about all these different avenues where you can get this different support. Okay, another question. Is there a short piece of encouragement, whether it's a quote, a lyric, something a therapist said to you that you were offered on your recovery journey and you find yourself coming back to over and over again because of how much it means to you? And like, what was it and what made it so meaningful? So, McCall, why don't you get us started? I would love several of you all to answer this one. McCall, you gotta unmute yourself, friend.
So I didn't go to bed till 1. We did support group marathon yesterday. I'm 44. I'm tired. Um, no, but when I thought about this, and finally I'm muted to share with y'all, um, my therapist in treatment told me something that profoundly changed the trajectory. And it wasn't like this inspirational quote or, nothing like that. She was really glad I used a behavior in treatment. And for me, I was like, what do you mean? You are the world's worst therapist. And it became this lifeline and like North Star for me because as I stepped down to PHP, I had this notion and I still had a lot of very perfectionistic tendencies, still do, that I combat all the time. But in this moment, I had stepped down thinking I could do this. I'm on my way to get back to life and my husband and my job and all these things. And that night I used behavior and I went into treatment the next morning, just soaked in shame and all of the things. And I fell on her couch, just debilitated. And she looked at me and said, I'm so glad this happened. And I was like, what is wrong with you? And she said, I'm so glad this happened because now you can see recovery isn't perfect. There are going to be bumps, there's going to be falls, you're going to use behaviors, and that's also life. Like there's going to be bumps and bruises. But here's the thing is that it's not about that. It's about the next best thing. It's about you doing the next best thing. And also, it was about her in that moment. Really, she came and sat next to me on the couch, which was just this like humanity personified moment for me, just feeling very shameful and small and all of those things. And she said, but look at all the things where you used your tools, where you used what you have learned. And it was like, oh shit, like yeah, I practiced this. I did X, Y, and Z along the way. And it wasn't like where did you go wrong using a behavior? It was where do you need more support? And that simple reframe in that moment that day on that couch really just changed my feelings of what recovery truly is, and that it's not this I'm never going to use behavior, I'm going to like white knuckle it through life every day all the time. It was forgiveness, it was grace, it was next best thing. And it was also looking at where those moments that I did use support and acknowledging the wins, even when there might have been a behavior in that mix, you have to acknowledge those wins. That became just this push for me to say, it's not going to be perfect, but it's possible. And so I carry it with me to this day. So
Amazing, Paul.
I'll
Thank
pass
you.
it on.
Galena, come on in.
Yeah, I think similarly to McCall, just the amount of care and support I received from my treatment team over time and, just like the energy that they gave off. But I think for myself, that reminder became um, I'm deserving of freedom. And that becomes my reminder all the time, and not just for the ED, but other difficult situations that I don't get to choose. I didn't choose the eating disorder. I didn't choose other challenges that I've had. And I can either let them control me and continue to lose opportunities and continue to lose out on experiences, or I can take that back and work toward recovery and regain the ability to make those choices for myself and not have my eating disorder make them for me. And so, um, I think when things get hard, it's that reminder of like, okay, if I want to engage with this, that's a choice I can make, but I'm giving up my freedom in the process, and that doesn't work for me anymore. And so I think it's I'm deserving of freedom, I'm deserving of love, I'm deserving of care. Those are the things that remind me that the recovery moves are really, really important for me because I start to lose the things that are more important to me than the eating disorder if I don't do that.
Love that, Galena. McCall, I'm kind of having this weird, like, whoa, there's so many parallels in what you just shared and what I'm about to share. Because I feel like actually the thing that comes up like viscerally most for me is actually a memory. And not in a bad way, but a regret I have of not sharing when I was struggling actively in my treatment process. And then like my treatment team being like, you're doing great. And it was very, like, I was very perfectionistic, very over controlled, and like very much wanted to be the good client, so to speak. And so then when I transitioned out of that care, I was struggling so much and I had not told anyone. And I just remember how I felt and also what it felt like when that bubble kind of finally popped and I let it out and how relieved I felt. Because for so long I was so afraid of getting in trouble or like being told that I was failing. And then to be able to, and thankfully I had like safe people and like a safe place to like let that out. And so now when like my clients will share with me, I know how hard that is and how vulnerable and scary that is. But I also like that memory of just like keeping everything inside. Like, and I've heard so many times like eating disorders thrive in shame and secrecy. And that is like just such a visceral memory for me. And probably the thing that I carry when I'm feeling really like nervous or vulnerable and has just been really helpful for me throughout my journey. So.
I love that, Jen. Actually, with Laura, Aaron, and Ellen, and I believe Shannon, you had your hand up. I'm going to switch the question up to get to another one. Very similar. I think you all can answer this one. What was the support that meant the most to you? So very similar but different. So to get to another person's question, so Erin, I'm going to toss it to you. What was the support that meant the most to you?
Absolutely. I think this one is actually kind of ironic. I had already been in recovery for a decent amount of time, and I did it by myself. I really didn't tell my family. They knew some hints about it, and my sister had said something to me, and they were coming out and telling me that they had an eating disorder. And, I connected them to, treatment center I trusted and things like that. And that support that we had for one another after they had, started entering their recovery meant the most to me because it was my family. So it was just like really visceral and like, I wanted to be there for them and all that. And yeah, I'm getting emotional talking about, but going through it together really meant a lot to me. So yeah, fine. That was the most important for me.
For me, I'd say people who showed up and just were like, I don't know, but I want to learn. Like, I don't know how to support you, but I want to learn. Particularly, like, one person was my best friend who, we live far away from each other, but she's been someone who, no matter what, she's like, I'm here, right? But also, she was willing to have boundaries with me at the same time of like, here's what I can do to help you, here's what I can't do to help you. And like, also then still sharing her stuff with me, like still treating me as I'm going through like a higher level of care or like I'm really struggling, still being like, hey, can I talk to you about my hard day? Like still having that mutual relationship really meant a lot to me because I think one thing that I really value in myself is connection and being a support for my people. And, if someone is completely like not allowing me to do that, I'm like, what is this relationship, right? And I just kind of really appreciated that aspect of that.
Yeah, I think for me, yes, it's people that showed up for me and also people who just saw me for more than just the eating disorder. I think for a while I started just to like my identity was, and I talked about this in a group last yesterday, my identity was the eating disorder and also being an athlete. And so when I was able to start being around people who just like were talking to me as Shannon, and helping me like figure out that I can make my own decisions. And when I say decisions, like it's not even in recovery. Like I just remember one time when one of my therapists actually was like, "Do you need to um run competitively?" And even like I had never even like saw that as an option. And so like I think like people like asking me questions where I could make the decision, like on outside of my out of the eating disorder, I started to realize like I was a person outside of this, and it's so crazy, but that was so beneficial to me. And I think with that being said, like with those people being in my life and just continuing just to show up and be there and not even ask me how like behaviors have been or whatever, but to just be those stable figures in my life was so important and just to be there to listen to me. And I remember when I was like really leaning into the recovery process and again, like it was so scary. I just remember one thing, I'm a twin. So one thing my twin sister said was just like, wow, I've like really missed you. And like that's like this day, like I can also get emotional talking about it too. It's like I had missed myself and I forgot like what Shannon was without the eating disorder. And it was like me being able to laugh and smile and us to be able to like be super goofy together. That just like that for me when I was really in recovery, I was like, I'm not going back. Like I missed her, I missed myself. It's pretty cool.
Oh, Shannon, thank you for sharing that. And it's a beautiful transition to my next question, um, is how do you find joy if you can't ever remember feeling that after struggling for many years with your eating disorder? Like, how do you find joy again? Like, how did you find joy again? Nikki, come on in.
I'm still choked up from Shannon's share.
Yeah.
When you said you missed yourself, that really struck me. Um, but something that really helped me with joy is I had to be prepared to try a bunch of things. I didn't know what was going to actually make me happy. I didn't know what I liked. I had to be, and it was scary, but I had to be willing to be novel at something. I had to be willing to try something, quit it, come back to it. I've been maybe embroidering the same template since 2024. Every once in a while, I think, you know what, I'm gonna like embroidery. It never sticks, but I still like to like move around and try different things because I think joy is one of those things that felt really intimidating for me because I really couldn't think of anything that I liked. So I just figured if I equally hate all of it, maybe there will be some things I hate less than, but certain things have stuck. Like I really love movement. I love my dance class that I go to. I do art now. I write poetry. I just think that joy can feel intimidating if you're going into it like this thing has to be joyous. There's lots of things that I have left to the side, like I wanted to like craft things and like build things. I hate that. I don't like struggling with furniture. I don't like struggling with like trying to put things together. I hate hanging things up. But I tried it. And I think that for me, joy is one of those things where if you go into it that I have to feel joy. This is going to be the thing that makes me feel joy. It might be a setup. You might like it, you might not like it. But I think just like moving around and trying different things helped me actually find things that like I really like I genuinely enjoy them now.
So, for those who haven't yet found Joy, she's actually on the upper right-hand corner of my Zoom. I'm not sure about y'all. So just take a look on this lovely webinar. Um, had to. Um, in seriousness, I think what really helped me, kind of what Nikki was saying, is like I had to get past some of the like the forced fun and like trying so hard to like be happy and the people pleasy. Like that was just so much of who I was as a human being. And then that really flared up like in the depths of my eating disorder, just always putting on that happy face. So I had to learn how to like actually like what is it like to really be that? And it felt like I didn't even understand where to start. I had to do so much like messy, silly, spontaneous, basically exposure work to just like be. And it kind of like sucked at first because I was like, this is like, I don't know, like, what do I do with this? This isn't productive, or what do I do now? And um, I think it helped me kind of reconnect to my inner child. It helped me reconnect to like the things that I did once have like passion for, like music and dancing and actually being with people. So then that I eventually started to feel that real, like I am happy or I am enjoying being around folks. But being silly and like it didn't feel silly at first, and I started to then find the silly within it.
I am neurodivergent, and I think one of the things that really helped me in my recovery, like begin to really recover, was one, realizing that I'm neurodivergent, and then two, unmasking my neurodivergence. So allowing myself to be silly and opinionated and bossy as appropriate, and like have all my opinions and be the person that I was, because I think for so long in my eating disorder, I kept myself small and I didn't allow myself to like make any waves. And so for me, it's been a lot of like laughing a lot again, spending time with friends, like loving the things that I loved when I was 13. And so that's been a really big part of my journey. It's just been like, I don't have to be so serious all the time. And also the parts of my personality that I think led to my eating disorder also helped me come out of my eating disorder too and find joy. So I think that's really cool.
I'm just going to take a second to add on to Anna. I have not lived into my name, really ever. I have lived terrified and rigid and over controlled. And as I hit midlife, I started to not give a shit. And that's where I started to feel like I could access joy. And I'm an avid roller derbier, which is goofy and pushes against all the roles and identities that have been assigned to me. And that is where I find deep joy and totally lost from the sense of self that feels too loud. I feel completely full of joy when I'm on the rink in my alternate persona with glitter all over me.
I mean, we have to have pictures, like so much glitter. I love it. And I definitely wanted to not share too much in this space today because I wanted to showcase our amazing facilitators. But this question got me because for those of you who know me or might know me, is I sort of followed in sync around in college. That was my thing. That was me. And I remember listening to, one of the albums and like being on the phone with my friends and laughing and like being just so silly. And my mom walked into my room and she started sobbing. She just looked at me and just started sobbing. And she said, I think that's the first time I've heard you laugh in 10 years. And it was this moment of the silly, like it was like so silly, I mean, but I actually fully remember that moment like it was yesterday because to your point, Joy, like I didn't even realize that joy was missing in my life. I mean, I knew what it was like to exist with an eating disorder. I knew what it was like to, to go through this journey, but even to sit there and to um, just giggle was like everything. So I really appreciated this. Um, and also just to share to like parents and loved ones that are on this call, I just want to say it gets better. I really and I think that I want to also, at the top of the 7 o'clock hour, I can't believe we've already gone through an hour, is that not only for loved ones, but for individuals that are on this journey right now, like the fact that I can't do math very quickly, but there's 17 of us here that have, lived experience, that have experienced an eating disorder. We have different stories, we have different backgrounds. We have different experience, like we went through different times. Some of us, struggled earlier, some of us struggled later, some of us were able to access care, some of us were not able to access care. But I just wanted to share that if you all get anything from today's group, is that we all want you to know that it gets better and to, hold on to hope because it does get better. So I will just say that. Okay, so moving forward. Um, oh my goodness, I am totally okay. So how do you let go and be in acceptance of the help without seeing it as a failure or a weakness? Like that accepting help or needing help is absolutely not a failure or a weakness. McCall, come on in.
Mute button. Got it this time. I didn't learn this until well after I entered recovery. And because I was kind of raised with like, the 80s mom of like, okay, everybody, you gird your loins, you do your thing, you make the grades, you do all the things, and you don't ask for help, which is, it worked out great for me. And so once I entered recovery and they kept saying, you have to ask for help, you have to ask for support. And I was like, but I don't know what that feels like. Like, I don't know what support I need. I don't know what help I need. And through trials and tribulations, I kind of slowly figured it out. I was able to say, yeah, I don't want that. Whether it was my husband, Jordan, trying to do this or that, I was like, that, no thanks, unsubscribe. It wasn't until my daughter, Marjorie, was very sick and folks started giving us things. And it was, meals and blankets and prayers and like you just name it. Like it was all the things under the sun. And it was just shoved onto my lap. And as someone who is a quintessential, like I just want to give and help and do all the things and I'm fine, I don't need anything. That moment showed me the gift of receiving and the gift of saying, yes, thank you. Not, oh, no, it's not a big, I got it, I got it. It's not a big deal. Also, being from the South, we are raised to, oh, I've got it, not put anyone out of their way. And so in that moment with my daughter, it was all hands on deck, supporting, I mean, just accepting all of the support that came to us. And I'll never forget being in the hospital and having this moment of, I, I, I couldn't do this without all of this. And I quickly realized what a gift it is to say yes and thank you and to accept that support. And so for me in my recovery, that support looked in a bajillion different ways. It was my husband finally learning just to sit with me on the couch and not trying to fix it, right? It was my best friend just checking in and saying, hey, how are you? Like checking in. not forcing me to talk or do anything like that. Um, it was folks that were able to sit in the empathy and the shit of it and not trying to fix, not trying to say, oh, but look at this side of it. And I was slowly able, through trial and error, to articulate what that would feel like in a better way for me and in my recovery. And then when my daughter, again, it was just this overwhelming. And now I'm actually able to say, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I need some help. Can you pick up carpool on this day? Like, and those are those little, like, seemingly insignificant ways of asking for help that are actually really huge. And I love that I have some friends that are like, oh no, I'll ask you. I will ask you when I need help. And I'm like, I love that so much. And so I just feel like the overarching thing that I've learned is like, we're not meant to do this alone, whether it's recovery, whether it's, raising family, being a friend, a student, doing life. Like, we're not meant to do it alone. And people want to help us, is the thing. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to what McCall said because we're on the same wavelength tonight. Um, but I think it really has for me not necessarily been one specific thing, but just like time and time again realizing how lonely I feel when I am not allowing other people to like help me and to support me. I was very much, I mean, I'm a therapist now. I was very much the like therapist friend. I wanted to fix, I wanted to be the caretaker for everyone else. And yet I was constantly feeling so lonely. And I slowly started to realize that's because no one knew me. No one knew anything going on with me. And it was really unpleasant and uncomfy at times. But to like let people in, I started to feel more and more connected. And now, it's just like so much easier and so much more beautiful. And it is absolutely, I think, what helps me build rapport with my clients and my friends is like not being just like put together all the time. And so, yeah, I think it's not an easy process, especially if you've grown up in that like mindset of this isn't safe or this isn't acceptable, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, ditto to everything that McCall and Jen said. I think for me, I'm such a logical person. And one of the things that helped was like there wouldn't be providers specializing in eating disorders or treatment centers specializing in eating disorders if like we were supposed to do this alone. You could just figure it out. Like clearly having those resources available means that there are people who need it and benefit from it. And I think being able to be in community with people who are also receiving help and seeing the benefit of it really, really helped me receive help as well. So just knowing like I would gladly put myself out of a job. I would love to put myself out of a job and be like, here's how you recover. Here's your one session. Okay, you're good. But that's not how it works. And just knowing that like all of these alliance exists for a reason. Treatment centers exist for a reason. Providers exist for a reason.
Absolutely, Genevieve. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go in several different directions with this question. So would love to get as much representation to this answer as possible. What does it mean to recover in a body or identity that the world still struggles to accept, whether it's age, it's race, it's gender, it's size? Like, would love your responses to these questions if anybody is willing to share. So, what is it like to recover in a world where, to a body or identity that the world still struggles to accept? Aaron, come on in.
Yeah, so I'm an open queer and trans clinician of color, in a large body my whole life. And it was really tough when I was in treatment, even running groups and things like that, hearing people talk about their recovery, but not wanting to look like me or my lived experience, or trying to translate everything in my head of like, okay, what does this mean for a trans person? And it wasn't easy, and it still really isn't easy, having to carve spaces out for myself. And there's one thing that I remember to this day. I was working with a trans client, not in eating disorder stuff, but they had told me, I'm tired of my lived experience being someone else's education. And I carry that with me all the time whenever I'm speaking or working. as a way to tell myself that I don't have to. Like other people don't have to know. And that's okay because for me, I know what I am, who I am, and I'm going to find and make a life worth living for myself. And I know it's not the most like sunshine answer, but it's my reality, and I know it's a reality that's very similar to other people, but really accepting that my experience doesn't have to educate other people, nor do I have to do that, has been so alleviating. Oop, and I froze, but hopefully you heard me. So
Yeah, kind of picking up from, Aaron too, also being in a larger body. I think there are a lot of assumptions that people make about what my eating disorder could have looked like, what, my behaviors, could have looked like. And so knowing that there is still, some pretty significant lack of awareness around what eating disorders can and do look like, or, who struggles from them, or, what kind of bodies can struggle with eating disorder, because the answer is all kinds. And so, just having the ability for myself to have a lot of compassion for other people who just aren't educated, and being able to acknowledge that my experience is valid on its own, regardless of what people think, regardless of what people think they know. And sometimes, with people who I'm really close to, it is that vulnerable moment of, hey, this is what my truth was, is, continues to be. And with some other people, it's being able to let it go rather than allowing it to, control my mood or allow it to control my reactions.
I really resonate with everything that was shared. I think that for me, growing up, I am first generation to immigrant parents. I grew up in the suburbs, so in an area where I didn't have a lot of people who look like me growing up. And I think that that really put me at odds with my body very young and just wanting to fit in and wanting to have an experience that felt similar to the people that I was witnessing around me. And the more I feel like I tried to reach for that, the further away ultimately I was getting for myself. And I didn't recognize it at the time. But I think something that has been really pivotal for me in my journey is really like starting the work of returning home to myself, finding inherent value in who I am and how I show up in the world, not comparing myself to other bodies. I think in the recovery space, it can be really difficult, but I think something that has always been really helpful for me at this point in my life is really being able to turn my struggle into a very purposeful place of being able to provide therapy to people who otherwise would have a hard time finding a clinician that represented them or that can understand where you're coming from. Because one of the things that was really hard for me was just like the cultural difference with food, right? The different body sizes being, just getting so many different conflicting messages between what is being shown like in the media, but what is being valued in my community, and having to decide that I'm in relationship with myself regardless of all of these competing messages, and that I want to help other people be able to listen to their inner voice and listen to what's right for them and what's right for their body, and that there isn't anything that they need to strive for outside of themselves, that they are already like inherently enough. Because I think that that was something that was really, important for me to come to terms with. I think that it can be really difficult when you have to go out and source your own material, read authors of color, find communities of color, find spaces that actually represent you. But I definitely think it's worth doing that extra work, because I think that there's so much value to be gained by community where you can kind of just relax and everybody understands. And not just from like an intellectual place, like they understand, because I have felt that and I felt really supported in these intellectual spaces, but like the lived embodied spaces of really getting it, I think just adds a different dimension to this that has been super valuable. So I think that if that is something that anybody is struggling with, really finding people who you look at and you're like, that's me, I'm them, right? And really trying to cultivate as much of that space as possible.
Nikki, Ellen, I see you. I'm just going to share really, really briefly, and I'm going to toss it to you. think what you just said was so, I mean, I'm just blown away and I'm so honored to be in this space with all of you and just your responses have just been everything. But what you just said, Nikki, about like finding people that hold that same lived experience, I think that's so important to us here at our organization for, some of our groups like our, humans in larger body groups, our LGBTQ group, our BIPOC group, are all facilitated by clinicians that hold very similar lived experiences for which is one of the reasons why we actually have those groups. So I'm just thank you for saying that. It is very important to us as an organization, and we hope to be able to continue to offer more and more, and not just in those groups, but across the all of our 19 groups as well. So thank you for sharing that. Ellen, come on in.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat too much about specifically like the larger body stuff because I know we've talked about that a little bit, but I want to add in a piece about like a body or an identity that the world struggles to accept as far as like a medical condition. So I am diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and that is something that is was at one point very intertwined with my eating disorder. And I think there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about how oftentimes like weight or food and those kinds of things are the only factors that contribute to this diagnosis. And that's something that I had to really learn for myself and really come to accept for myself. And I think with any kind of chronic illness thing, it's for me, recovery means being kind to my body as it is, right? I can't control whatever physical ailment or diagnoses I have, but I can be kind to myself and I can take care of my body and myself and advocate for myself. That's something that's also had to be has been difficult. Many of us who are in larger bodies, I'm sure, can relate to like going into a doctor's appointment and being said, "Oh, if you just lose weight, everything will be fine." I have an ear infection. Come on, guys. What are we talking about here? Like literally, I my dog bit me once, and that's what they talked about. And so it's just like these things of like, that's not relevant here, and kind of remembering for myself, I'm here to try to access care and take care of my body, and I can still know my own truth. I can know that like actually like my labs are fine, right? Like based on my diagnosis and things I have, like I'm actually doing fine. So this person who doesn't know me, you know, their opinions don't matter. Knowing what I know for myself is that my recovery and my body deserve to be cared for with like very intensive care. And so just kind of like remembering that for myself has been really important. That I'm not trying to like punish my body for struggling with something that it struggles with.
Thank you so much, Ellen. There was like an add-on to this question from someone who shared that I've struggled with my eating disorder for my whole life, and I'm in the beyond period of my life. Is there any hope for me? Have any of you worked with individuals that are in the late part of life that have recovered from their eating disorder? See, I'm going to put you on the spot for this one.
And here I am. So yes, I have, and I've seen it, and I was fortunate or not to come into recovery in midlife, and I've been in recovery for many, many years. We're not saying numbers, but I'm in the beyond category now, and very, very happy about it. Um, and I just wanted to touch a little bit also on the previous question, which is that whatever my body size is, I get the same kind of thing about being older. Well, this is what happens when you're older. This is what happens as you age, and all that. And not everybody that's older or ages has X, Y, and Z. Um, so that comes up. But yes, many, many people that I have seen went, and in fact, that first inspired me when I came into recovery was I saw people at the time that were 10 years older than me, 20 years older than me, and watching them grow in their recovery was everything. And that gave me hope for the future because I thought my thought was, why bother? Why bother at that point? And then I saw people being joyful and happy, and and I guess you'd call it successful, but really doing recovery and yes, they were older and now we see that I'm one of the facilitators for the midlife and beyond group, and we see that in there a lot. And we see people that struggle, but we see people that also are living in recovery. And it's just really beautiful. So recovery is possible and at any age and stage.
Sandy, thank you so much for that. We have quite a few folks that very much appreciated your answer, and plug for the midlife and beyond group for sure. If there was one piece of advice for families, what would you say to them? And I know that there's different feedback for different ages, for different types of eating disorders. So I know it's a very, very loaded question. One piece of advice. Rachel, come on in.
Not being, no, you can be afraid and do it anyway. Be willing to look at your own stuff. And that doesn't mean, oh no, everyone has an eating disorder and everyone has to change everything about them and your whole life gets turned upside down. It means eating disorders really do impact a family system. So if you're asking your loved one to change and adjust, that inevitably is going to have an impact on the whole family system. And what a cool opportunity to be able to make those adjustments and like navigate those dance steps together. I think that was one of the most powerful things that my parents, my brother, just yeah, my immediate family were able to do for me, in especially in my early stages. And I love to remind them of that in the present day as well sometimes.
Similarly to Rach, I say this with love and kindness because, again, we all were shoved into the same diet culture world. But please actually think about how you're talking about food, about your body, about other people's bodies. The first time I visited home on a school break after starting the recovery process, my mom was very thrilled to share with me that she was cooking out of a very well-known weight loss program cookbook. And didn't I think it looked not so bad because of the macros and the calories and this and the that? And I was just like, we both know what I'm doing, right? And so again, I hold no fault for anyone of having diet culture ideals or body image issues, but like for like 2 seconds, can we lovingly think about our words and maybe change them?
I'm coming at this kind of from the perspective that I work with a lot of high school and college age individuals. And I usually ask families to take into account one, none of us asked for this, in particular, the person who is going through this experience. It's not something they're like, you know what I want to do? This sounds like fun. And that acknowledging too, like I said before, maybe family influences or genetic component. But the thing that I really hone in on is taking into account that for our life stage, there's so much going on, and this is one of the hardest things that they've probably ever had to do. It's probably the hardest things our family's ever going to have to do, and giving that grace. If that's they just moved away to college, that's a big life transition. If that's they're in high school and they're stressing about grades, or their relationship came to an end, and you're like, oh, come on, like it's not no, like this is this is the most they've ever been through. This is the farthest they've ever been in life. And so giving them that grace that on top of that, they're going through something that none of us have a direct answer for. And that the family is also going through that and giving everyone that extended grace. So I think coming at it as a team, and not as opponents with each other.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that. And the other thing that I will just share is take care of yourself. And I would say this as parents, as partners, as friends, as children, as siblings, as any member of the support team, please take care of yourself. Reach out, receive, I'm tired right now, but like allow yourself to receive the education so that, I know as a parent, when my daughter was born, I never got one of those Yellow for Dummies book that said, in case your kiddo has an eating disorder, please read me. And oftentimes a lot of the things that we know how to do innately as a parent is counterintuitive for what your loved one with an eating disorder actually needs. You know, get support, get your own therapist. We have friends and family support groups. Um, Put on your oxygen mask. Take care of yourself too. Because one thing that I've learned and Joy, like you're like resonating in my head of like always doing, never stopping, always do, and it'll force you to stop. When your cup is not full anymore, um you will be forced to stop. And so I just want to acknowledge, I really, really want to acknowledge because I we have an overwhelming amount of loved ones in this group tonight, is thank you. Thank you for loving your humans so much. We have a lot of partners in this space tonight. Thank you for showing up, for taking care of yourself, for helping to support your loved ones. Recovering from an eating disorder, I will say this, I'm sure many of us in this space will say this, is some of the hardest things that you will ever do. Loving someone who's recovering from an eating disorder is going to be some of the hardest things that you will ever do. So thank you for loving your human so much, and know that you don't have to. Just as the person that's struggling with an eating disorder, the loved one does not have to support this alone either. Please take care of yourself. Please reach out to the Alliance. Please get resources. Please come to groups. Please get your own therapist if you can. I do know that that's privileged, so I just want to say that. But please just know that you do not have to navigate this alone. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Um, Next question. Um, when or how did you decide when your lived experience was helpful to share in the therapeutic setting? We have a lot of individuals that are going on the path of becoming clinicians themselves. Anna, come on in. I love that.
Yeah, so I work pretty exclusively with only clients in larger bodies who are experiencing eating disorders. So like for context, clients are coming to see me because I live in a larger body and have on my website and have on kind of all of my material that I'm in recovery myself. I don't bring up my specific experiences in recovery of like, I did this, I did X, I did whatever, or I went to this place or that place, or I had this therapist. But more so, I might say, like, a lesson I've really learned myself is this, or, something that I've been like that I've learned through my own recovery is this. And so for me, I try to take all levels of like comparison out of it because they don't need to know necessarily they don't need to know like what eating disorder I struggled with or what behaviors I've used or where I've gone to treatment or how long I've been in recovery. Because those are things that can kind of feel the eating disorder. My clients are often looking for hope and they're looking for wisdom and they're looking for encouragement. And so they want to see that someone else has done it. And by no means do I tell them that I'm perfect and that I have it all figured out, but I, am also able to name with clients like I still struggle with anti-fat bias as like an individual who has a lot of medical issues and has to go to the doctor pretty often. Like I'm steeped in that kind of system. And so I talk about that with clients too, a lot of like, this is how I've advocated for myself. This is how my clients have advocated for themselves. So a lot more generalities, but I think too, a lot of my clients are like, I've never seen anyone in a larger body like recover from an eating disorder, or I didn't even know. A lot of my clients will come in for autism, religious trauma, etc. And then we're realizing that there's like an underlying eating disorder too. And so I think for me, it's a lot of giving hope and a lot of being able to meet them where they're at without going into those details because those aren't really necessarily things I share with really anyone in my life because it's just kind of my details in my recovery that are between like me and my care providers. So.
Yeah, similarly, I don't walk into rooms with my clients and say, "Hi, I'm Galina. I have lived experience with an eating disorder." I really only do that here when I introduce myself for groups. But in general, I always want to make sure that if I am sharing my own experiences, it's because it's going to benefit whoever I'm working with. And that's a really big kind of self-awareness check that I always have to do if I am going to disclose anything about my journey of, is this a person who's fearful of sharing details about their disordered behavior because they feel like I'm going to judge them or that I won't get it, or, you know, insert whatever belief that they might have about our work together. And so if it's that kind of barrier treatment, I absolutely will disclose also on a very like kind of general level, and a very professional level, right? The things that I've struggled with. Um, I think it's also knowing that um I've seen it just be such like an opening factor in our sessions of suddenly like that breath of relief of like, oh, you do get it. Like I don't have to worry about like any sort of criticism or anything like that. So I do think it has power. I've also seen it go very awry, even with clinicians that I've worked with who have over disclosed. So like I think it is, a very delicate balance. It's knowing like your reason for sharing it as well. So it's done carefully, but it can also be done very powerfully.
Yeah, I think keeping it general and professional and like everyone said, like keeping as many details out of it that can be used for comparison and noting that eating disorders tend to thrive on that comparison piece too. And I think in disclosing that it's really on if it's helpful for that individual. I do know in terms of like what kind of motivated me, was it was like other staff members too, and to a limit, and I learned from them. And having like that recovered staff group is really helpful. And just like recognizing that there's people. I know one of my biggest motivators is like one day I want to be like them. Like I want to be able to use my words to tell like let other people know that it is possible or that there is a life outside of the eating disorder too. But I even remember just individually when I was deciding what I wanted to do and I had graduated my undergrad. And I was like, okay, where am I going in life? Like, what is my passion? What do I want to strive for in terms of like work? And one thing that was really cool that I did was like be able to go back to my college space and share my story with like people that were in college. Um, and the amount of people that like reached out to me and asked for like places that they could go to for support and help, like it made me realize like okay, like your words and your life story does matter, and it's like across the board, whether you're like struggling or you have struggled. Like I don't know, I think that was something that to me was just like okay, this is so cool. Like whatever I've been through can help other people recognize that they also deserve that help too.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And also, blanket statement, you don't have to have lived experience to be a phenomenal therapist either. But there's a lot of questions specifically around when to disclose. Next question is, oh, this one just, yeah. How to communicate with medical providers, PCPs. How have you communicated with medical providers and PCPs who just do not understand eating disorders and reinforce weight stigma, diet culture, and the overall BS? Dr. Jen, come on in.
I was literally gonna say, Joanna, this is one of the only times I have no fear or shame in being like, I'm a doctor. One of the biggest things now as a professional, a doctor, is really being able to be a team, treatment team member who will advocate for my clients. So one thing I always encourage is like, if clients are comfortable with it, letting like your therapist or your dietitian advocate for you. I think integrated care between like your team members is just so evidence-based and important to begin with. And so we should all be collaborating and hopefully like targeting the same goals. So that's definitely something that like as a provider, I really appreciate the ability to do and know that like honestly there are hierarchy assumptions. And so knowing it's coming from a professional sometimes gets more buy-in. And I will also say like I still struggle with going into my own doctor's office, just knowing that the medical system is steeped in some anti-fat bias and weight stigma. And so I think I definitely try to cope ahead, think about what am I going to do after this appointment, no matter what's said there. Also, what am I needing to get out of this appointment? And if it is within my power to like try a couple different providers until I find one that's a good fit for me, that's absolutely something I will try to do. I know that's depending on if you live in rural areas or insurance may not be accessible, but all just kind of like initial ideas for how to potentially both have support and communicate, and then also take care of yourself if stuff does get stirred up in the medical setting, and make sure you can leave and not let that derail your choices to stay in recovery after.
I think it's really important to like vet doctors and providers. And so a lot of times when I'm looking for a new provider, I'm asking my other larger bodied friends, I'm asking my queer and trans friends, where are they going to the doctor and are they having a good experience? That does not mean I'm going to have the same exact experience. It does mean I'm more likely to have a better inclusive experience. I will call clients doctors. I have my dietitians call my clients doctors. And also, I will often give my client the like, you do not have to be weighed cards and have them bring them to the office. I just give my clients a bunch of information like the Hayes health sheets that are out there as well. Like, I usually, when my clients, because sometimes my clients haven't been to the doctor in like so many years because they're so afraid of going to the doctor. And so we're talking about like, how do you ground? How do you regulate? How do you have the resources? And there are weight neutral providers out there. It's a matter of finding them, because I feel like because the medical system is still very stigmatized, they don't necessarily put that on their website, right? So it's like a word of mouth a lot of times. But like my special interest, I have a like Google Doc of all the providers that are like really great in Chicago and in Illinois. And I give that to my clients because I think that we should just share resources. So I think for me, it's a lot of just like trying to educate them, and also like reminding them that they can walk out of the doctor's office too. Like if you're not having a good experience, please leave that doctor's office. Like you don't need to stay.
Something
And
else
then
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Okay. Something else that I'll do is I'll make sure to, before going into a doctor's appointment, I'll like in my notes section on my phone, I'll literally write what are questions I have, what are things I need to get out of this appointment, what are expectations I have. And I will actually sometimes just show my phone to the provider. Another thing I'm thinking about is just like as a therapist, I was literally a master's level acting therapist and didn't know I had an eating disorder officially, right? I knew I had an issue, but I was like, I don't know what's happening, because in my program, I had maybe 1 hour, if that, educating me about eating disorders. And so that's another thing I try to keep in mind going into a provider is they likely, unless they're a specialist, they know very little about eating disorders. And so kind of not that it's my job to educate them, but it kind of like helps me remember to like have a little compassion for myself and have a little grace with them to an extent of like, I'm going in there and this is what we're working on. They might make some shitty comments, and that might be really hard for me. And how can I care for myself before, during, and after this appointment? I also, if there's something like for me, like weighing myself can be really triggering. And so if they do say like, we need to weigh you, I'll be like, I can ask, is this medically necessary? Like, why is this medically necessary right now? And I'm allowed to refuse any treatment that is not medically necessary. Even medically necessary, I probably could refuse because it's my choice, right? But I'm allowed to say, no, thank you. And I can ask for an explanation of why they need whatever thing it is. Because if I know that this is information is going to be triggering to me, then I deserve to advocate for myself. Another thing with, like my primary care physician is, maybe yearly they do want to like weigh me or something. Actually, they can like in their system, how you get like an after visit summary, they can make it so that doesn't print on the one you receive, and they can also make it so it doesn't show up in your chart. And so that was something I've every new doctor I go to, I'm like, hey, you can do this in your system. Did you know that? And like help them figure that out because I'm like, I don't want to see that. That's none of my business. My weight is not my business. And that's something I just know. And so kind of advocating for myself in those ways and like in the ways that I feel comfortable and have the capacity to educating providers also.
I love that. I love that. I think self-advocacy is tremendous. And I also want to hold space for the fact that it sucks that we have to continue to do it. Like, we just want to say that. Okay. And the other thing too is call the Alliance. call Nick. Nick wants you to call them. So, and they can help connect you with some PCPs. Also, we have the Alliance has lab coat cards that we can also send you to bring to doctors' offices, the More Love cards. There's all of the resources that are there. Okay. These are going to be more rapid fire because I have about 300 questions left, but I'm going to try to get through as many. So these are going to be short responses that are really significant questions. What would you want someone listening to today, an individual or their loved one, who isn't sure recovery is possible? What would you want them to know? Go ahead, Kate.
I think that recovery doesn't have to look any one specific way, that it's going to look very different for everyone. And even as we're up here talking about what it's looked like for us as facilitators, it may look really different for you. And, we have to be aware of where that kind of like perfectionism or that idea of recovery kind of gets in the way of us doing real recovery.
Yeah, just like Kate said, I think recovery is one behavior away, it's one reframe away. Recovery is a relationship that you're in an ongoing process with. There's no such thing as I am in, too far gone that I can't recover, because your next thought gets to be a thought that you reframe. Your next behavior, your next action gets to be a recovered action. So I think just really kind of breaking it down into something really that small.
And you don't have to know or even fully believe it or understand it to just start, to just try. So just do it. Just see what happens.
So how would you define recovery? So, because there is no definition for recovery, and the Alliance doesn't have a definition for recovery. The community doesn't have a definition for recovery. What does the term recovery mean to you?
Well, I don't think there is one definition, just like we just said. Like, there's no one size fits all. It is, I think as a society, we want to like name things, label things, black and white things, and there is none. And so for me personally, what has felt best is that I feel personally I am fully recovered, and I will forever and always be working on recovery, because recovery is this beautiful journey of self-discovery and always just being honest about where I am, whether it's whatever train I'm on, whatever gremlin, the anxiety, the perfectionism, wherever it is. That is what recovery is for me, is tackling those things as they come up, having a therapist, having friends, having family, being able to reach out and say, hey, I'm not doing so hot right now. I need some support in this and that. That is recovery for me. And so I just really want to emphasize that we have to stop putting pressure on ourselves to get to this magical land of being recovered. It is what it feels right for you. And that is just how it feels right for me.
Yeah, I think that recovery, again, it doesn't have one definition, but I really like to think about it in terms of it being me in relationship with myself. Like, how do I talk to myself about what I'm eating? How do I talk to myself about body size? How do I talk to myself about, just how I'm talking to myself? What is the voice in my head sounding like? I think recovery is one of those things that you get to be in relationship with. Okay, I hear this thought, but what action do I want to take? Okay, I saw myself struggle with that action yesterday. What action do I want to take today? It's always coming back into relationship with myself whenever it feels like that relationship is struggling. And I look at that as being recovered. No individual behavior can take me forever and fully out of recovery. I get to be in recovery tomorrow, next 5 minutes from now, just because I get to stay in relationship with myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what everyone else said of there's not one definition, but I think we say it all the time in the Alliance, right? Like doing life beyond the eating disorder, like that is truly, I think, speaks to my definition of recovery for me, is like doing life and particularly making my body and I love the term relationship with myself, Nikki, that you just used, of like making that relationship home to me. So like rather than viewing myself as something to be fixed, viewing myself as something to be taken care of. And that means like taking care of physical, mental, emotional health, like all of it. And so I really think of it as like really striving each day to take care of myself so that I can do life. Like if I could put it in a simple sentence like that.
So I would say for myself, Nick Coppage, registered clinical social work intern, recovery is being a blue-haired, trans, queer, neurodivergent, fat-bodied human just showing up in the world. Now I'm not saying all of you have to dye your hair and realize you're queer and do all these things, but it's just being who I want to be and being a version of me that like little tiny baby Nick who was in the, church and quiet and trying all these things, like would just be like, that person is so cool. Like that person is so cool. And that's what recovery is to me. Getting to explore myself, getting to show up and like randomly do things that I never thought would have been okay because I didn't fit the norm. Like unmasking in ways that would have made people think I was weird. Being fat and being loud about it. Um, Being queer in Florida. Like that's what recovery is.
And I think I would just add is, recovery is not perfect. Recovery is not, I say it a lot, but sunshine, bunnies, and rainbows. Um, to me, recovery is showing up. It's being present. It's, you know, laughing till I cried last night, because I was surrounded by my friends who love me. Recovery is, being present for my kid and, you know, watching my parent leave this earth and still be okay. Recovery is being in community with each and every one of you and seeing light come back into people's eyes. And recovery to me is hope. And it's messy and it's hard and it's overwhelming and it's being, an ally, it's being a partner, it's being a friend, it's being a parent, it's being a kiddo, it's all those things. And what I've had to learn, and to me, what recovery is giving myself permission to show up in all my humanness, that some days are going to be great, some days are going to be really not great. And that's okay. I just have to continue putting one foot in front of the other because to me, that's what recovery is. And that is like the whole premise behind like living your life beyond your eating disorder. It's not the final chapter. I hope it's not the final chapter. I've got many more chapters. But we just have to keep on moving forward. And it's to me so much better when we get it to do it collectively in community. So I would just add that. So I'm going to ask each of you this question, and I'm just going to, if that's okay, just call you out or call you in. How about that? I'll call you in to answer this question. Um, and you can take your time with this because we do have a little bit more time. Is if you could go back and talk to the former you while you were experiencing your eating disorder, it can be at any point of your experience, what would you say to them? So, if there's anyone who wants to sort of throw it out there first, or I could just do like the teacher thing and call on people, but go ahead, Sandy. Thank you.
Well, I would tell myself that, yeah, there may be some parts that are really uncomfortable, really icky, just icky. I might cry a lot. I don't know, just all of it, every emotion. I did a lot of crying, and that it does get better. That moving through it was so much better than the times when I tried to go around it. So just moving through it no matter what. And it does get better. Everything in life is better when the eating disorder was allowed to subside.
Mine is so simple, and I hope I could say it in a way that younger Joy would understand. I feel like I could pierce her eyes with mine. Joy, you can eat what you want, when you want, and how much you want, and you will be fine. That's it.
I would remind Rachel to actually let a lot of shit go. Like, stop making a lot of the things that you're making a thing, and bring it back to you and taking care of you. And that can be messy and vulnerable and silly and filled with a lot of feelings you probably haven't been connected to in a while. And it's going to be the best thing you ever do.
I think I'd like to tell past Laura that I'm not I'm not beyond repair and I'm not bad. And not in a not sick enough way, in a way of I don't deserve to feel and think the things that I'm feeling and thinking. And if I could love myself in the way back then I love myself now, if I could show her what that feels like, that everything was going to be okay, I think she might have, I think she might have actually believed it. But I didn't have that voice at that time. So.
I think I would say I kind of was writing this down a little bit. You're okay and you're lovable just as you are. You aren't too much and you aren't too little. You're not a piece of shit and you haven't met all the people who are going to love you yet.
Yeah, I think I would tell little Jen, like you are lovable. You have so much fun and weirdness and spunk to offer the world, and they want that. They don't want a perfect manicured version of you, and you're so much cooler when you're this fun. Um, I don't know if she'd be open to hearing it. I hope she would, but that's what I would say.
I would tell little Genevieve that it's okay to fall apart and not have it all together all the time. That you're allowed to be human, and people will still love you, and you'll still get to do cool things, even if you're not perfect all the time.
Kind of on theme, but I would tell little Shannon that there is no perfect time for recovery because life isn't perfect, and who you are and your worth is much more about like your your laugh, your smile, your words, rather than like what you look like or what you eat, and it's not that serious.
I would tell past me that one day, well, it's gonna suck to get there, but one day you'll be able to look in the mirror and be happy being fat and trans, and you'll be able to see yourself for the first time. So yeah.
Yeah, I would tell the past version of myself that working toward recovery is going to allow you to see the light that you are that other people see that you just don't yet. And you're going to be able to embrace that, and you're going to be able to give so much to other people that right now you just don't have the capacity to give. So it's worth to keep going.
Um, I wrote down a few things and I said heal out loud because you nearly died in the silence. People need other people. Life didn't end at 16. You don't have to sit in your shame alone. Shame dies when we share stories in safe spaces. Keep coming home to yourself. It's worth it for the life of full moments.
And can I get you to write those in the chat? Thank you.
Love that. I think I would say to my younger self that your sensitivity is a gift of empathy and intuitiveness, and that your big feelings are okay and they will carry you far one day. And to show up as you are and never be afraid to fail because it means you're trying and doing the things in life that you really want to do. So,
It's interesting to kind of consider too how my answer to this has changed in the years that we've been doing this as well, right? That I was thinking that gosh, especially when maybe I was earlier in my career, it felt really important that the younger version of me knew that like you're going to help someone someday, right? And I think there was this feeling of this can't be all for naught. And now what I realize is like, of like what I want to tell my younger self is like you are a full person, not in spite of your experience, but because of it, that that this is, and it's hard to believe, but like an enrichment to your life that you hold so much more empathy and perspective because of what you have experienced, and that it, similar to what McCall has said, it's always been a gift, right? And that it has always informed what I've been drawn to, that sensitivity as well. And it's okay to embrace it rather than to try and bury it. And I think too, what I would say is like all of the good stuff in life exists in the uncertainty. It exists in the risk. And I unfortunately, younger me tried a really long time to find a way around that. It doesn't exist that I could find, right? But that all of the really beautiful things meant taking risks and putting myself out there.
I think I would tell younger Nick, first of all, she'd be confused why I'm calling her Nick, but that's okay. I think I would tell her, like, you went through so many things that are not your fault, and you don't have to have it put together anymore. You're not meant to be the one holding together your family or your parents or your friends. You're allowed to take up space and be sad and grieve and be angry and not just be this perfect little girl. Um, I would also encourage her to maybe look in the mirror and reflect on identity, reflect on because maybe the me that I am trying at the time was trying to recover into, was trying to be, was trying to present to the world was not who I am. Uh, Flick her on the nose and be like, honey, you helped start the GSA at your school. Maybe look in the mirror. Because if you try to recover into a box that isn't yours, then of course it's not going to feel right. Of course it's not going to stick.
I would tell my younger self she was really stubborn and she was really bought in to the eating disorder. But everything that I thought that the eating disorder was giving me, recovery is going to give me so, so, so much more. And I think that, I didn't think that there was more to life than trying to, become a certain like version that I could project out into the world. And I've never been more empty on that journey. And I feel so much more like full of life, so much more in touch with myself, just so much more complete as a person with recovery than I just can't even imagine like not having the life that I have now. Like I would never wish an eating disorder on anybody, but like the recovery journey was just something that has just been so valuable to me that I've gotten to learn a lot about myself. So I think I would just really let her know that you have to let go of the eating disorder. It feels like it's the right answer, but it is not the right answer.
My answer has just been supplemented after listening to all of these amazing humans. And I think I just also want to make sure to say, like, recovery is so much more fun and so much more joyful. And like, I appreciate all of you sharing that. I know it really resonates with me, but yeah, there's a lot of fun on the other side of this.
And I think I would I would end out this question with saying that this is gonna be really hard. It's gonna probably be the hardest thing that you will ever do. And it's also the best thing that you will ever do. Because you deserve to take up space. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. And that despite what the shitty committee between your ears is telling you, people should hear your voice. You should continue to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and continue to move, however long it takes, how many slips and trips, because it's not about the slips and the trips, it's what happens after that. Um, and I just want to just fully just acknowledge this is our 25th anniversary year. I started the organization because I wanted a place where I could show up and I could be in a space like this with other humans where they would say something where I wouldn't feel so alone. And I know that all of us here as facilitators in this space and the other 760 some that run these groups um, know how special this space is, that we can come together in community and we can heal together. And there's no expectations of perfection. There's no timelines. There's just no right way to be on this journey. And we also know that it is so much better when we can do this together. And so, if you are currently struggling right now with your eating disorder, please know that we do believe that it can get better. We do believe in hope. We do believe in living a life beyond your eating disorder. If you are loving someone who's experiencing an eating disorder, thank you for loving them so much that you are here, that you're showing up, that you're filling up your cup, that you are supporting them. It's going to be a lot. And one thing that I'm consistently humbled and grateful for is being in community with people that are my heroes that show me that it does and can get better. So I think with that, this officially concludes Not One More Weekend. I think that Rachel, CV, Lori are going to maybe take a long vacation. To all of our facilitators that, were part of all day yesterday, the 16 hours of group, and that help facilitate our groups, each and every day, now 7 days a week. And yes, that is a PSA for it, next Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the Alliance family, for being part of our community, being part of our team. And to each and every one of you who show up day after day and did lots of hours yesterday and are here on a Sunday night and choosing not to watch the SAG Actor Awards simultaneously, I see you. I will watch it later. It is being recorded. Um, but yeah, on behalf of all of us, our board, our staff, all of us here, thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for all your support financially over the weekend. If you're able to continue to spread the word, please take care. Please be safe. And that concludes Eating Disorders Awareness Week. So thanks, y'all. Have a really great night. See you soon. Bye bye.